Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hi, it's so amazing to see everyone here. Hi. So we are joined today by Padma Lakshmi.
Hello.
All right, so Padma needs no introduction, but I'm gonna do one anyway. Padma is an Emmy-nominated food expert, television producer, and host of Top Chef and Taste the Nation. She is a New York Times bestselling author. She is an ACLU Artist Ambassador for Immigrants' Rights and Women's Rights. She is a Goodwill Ambassador for the UN Development Program, and she is a New Yorker. Yes. Welcome, Padma.
Hi. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be back in New York. I just got back from Europe, so.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about that. You were filming the 20th season of Top Chef. 20?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
20.
Yes. I've been away filming, and it's going to be a great season. I can't tell you much, obviously, but I can tell you that it's gone international. And, you know, our Top Chef, the American original Top Chef, is in 174 territories, but we also have franchises. So if you watch Top Chef in Mexico, you'll get the Mexican version. Or in France, you'll get the French version. So we have 29 franchises. So this competition this season, all of the contestants are all-stars. And what that means is that you've either won your season or you are a finalist. Otherwise, you wouldn't be competing. So needless to say that just starting out from the first episode itself, the competition is really fierce.
And
it's fun.
When you started 20 years ago, like, could you have even imagined everything that was to come for Top Chef?
No, not at all. I mean, I did it because I thought it would give my cookbook a little boost, you know? And I mean, I never I don't think any of us imagined that it would be this cultural phenomenon and this sort of behemoth that it's become. It's actually not 20 years, it's actually 16 or 17 years, because the first years, we did 2 seasons every year. Thankfully now we only do 1. So
2 seasons.
Yeah.
How do you keep it fresh? I mean, you know, the format, you know, has more or less kind of stayed the same, right?
Yeah.
But you come every season and you bring so much energy to it. I mean, how do you do that?
I mean, I think changing the location every season helps a lot, because the environment, the community that we go and film in always informs our challenges. And I don't think people realize how regional even American food is. And so one of the great pleasures of being on Top Chef and hosting it for this long is that I've been able to travel the country. And, we go in and I sort of park it there for 6 weeks. So it really allows you to get to know the city you're in a way that you might not if you were just a tourist.
Yeah, and food culture is quite different now, right, than it was 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So can you talk about how the show has changed as food culture around it has changed?
Sure. I mean, I think what Top Chef has done is that it's really educated a whole generation about food. I mean, when I was young, I didn't know what an amuse-bouche was. I don't think I knew that until I was 30, because I certainly didn't grow up going to those kinds of restaurants. And I think now young people are really much more knowledgeable about food than my generation was, and I think that's been one of the pleasures too. Like, I'll be hailing a taxi on the corner and young teenagers will come and say, "Oh, I had an amuse-bouche contest or a quick fire at my sleepover last weekend." And that's been the great joy for me, is that we've been able to infect a whole generation of TV viewers and really make them much more knowledgeable about food than before.
The amuse-bouche contest is pretty great.
I like it.
That's amazing. No, it's a great idea. And then before you were shooting Top Chef, you were doing the new season of Taste the Nation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I have been on the road on and off pretty much since February. When we film Taste the Nation, we go to a city and I pretty much embed myself there for a week. And then I come home for a week and prepare the next episode. And so I was doing that, and then I wrapped Taste the Nation in early August, and then 2 weeks later I left to do Top Chef. So it's not sustainable. Like I don't, I don't think that I recommend this schedule to anyone. It makes life very difficult.
So, I know just, from knowing you that Taste the Nation is a real passion project for you. And I hope you've all seen Taste the Nation. It's a fabulous show, and Padma's, yes, Taste the Nation, right?
Thank you.
It's really, really wonderful show, and Padma's traveling around the country, sort of visiting with different immigrant communities and eating their food and sort of talking about the food and the food culture and their contributions to American culture. So I know this is really personal to you. How did you get it made? Like, tell us about how you got it made.
It was really hard to get it made, honestly. I always thought that the most exciting food in this country came from immigrant communities. I think American food is an ever-evolving organism, and it's exciting because new generations of immigrants from all over the world come and contribute to it. And, if you look at food trends, they're often what we would consider to be here ethnic foods. And so I thought that it was also a good jumping off point to talk about a lot of other things that I was thinking about and working with the ACLU on. And after working with them for a few years, I really thought that this should be my next project. And then literally we pitched it to whoever would hear us, and I got turned down by 7 different networks, and one network even wrote me a long, like 700-word email or something about why they said no, which I could have done without, but but that's okay. I mean, I appreciate it. I guess they just wanted to tell me that they thought long and hard about it, but I definitely know that network executive is not at that network anymore. And I think I wound up where I should be. I think Hulu was a great partner to do the show with. And if you've seen the show, you know that the food is very important, but it's just a Trojan horse. And we try to look at, the big subject of immigration through different facets of it. So we also go to indigenous communities. We also go to African American communities like the Gullah Geechee in the Carolinas and Georgia. And so for me, it just became important to see like what actually is American food and who gets to call their food American and how that happens.
And I know this show obviously is personal to you, as we just said, and you yourself came to this country. You came when you were 4, right? You were born in New Delhi.
Yeah.
And your grandparents put you on the plane here to New York to come meet your mother,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So what was it like to arrive here, as a child? What was that experience like?
It was exciting. I mean, I had been separated from both my parents since I was 2. My mother divorced my biological father and came here to New York to make a new life for us. And I joined her 2 years later. And I remember, even though I was 4, I was very excited to be reunited with my mother. And my mother probably couldn't have afforded, a better ticket. So these were the days of Pan Am. And so I remember it was New Delhi to Cairo to Rome to London to New York.
Oh my God.
And I got here actually around this time of year. I got here on Halloween Day. And I remember driving home from JFK with my mother and seeing all these little kids in the streets dressed up funny. And, I got to our very tiny apartment on the Upper East Side, and I saw this beautiful platter of candy that I thought my mother had set out to welcome me. and the doorbell kept ringing, and my mother kept answering it, and these kids were like demanding something of her. And she kept taking handfuls of my candy and putting it in their bags. And I just thought they were beggars, Because I'm coming from 70s New Delhi, where this is very common. And there are street urchins who perform and get dressed up and have bright face paint and stuff. And she had to explain the tradition to me. So Halloween is a very special holiday in our house, and it also has emotional resonance for myself and my mother too. So
It's incredible.
yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful day. I thought America, this land of plenty where they just give you candy no matter what. You know?
You can just ring someone's doorbell and they'll give you candy.
And they give you candy. That's right.
Well, I wonder as you're making the show, how much are you thinking about your own family and your own experience where you're going around the country, you're reporting, right?
Yeah.
And you're meeting people and you're listening to their stories. I mean, are you thinking about your own mother at all? Are you thinking about your own story?
I mean, I think I wrote the show for my mother and other people's families who have to make these incredible sacrifices. So, whenever I write a cookbook or a recipe for a cookbook, I'm always thinking about my mother. I'm thinking about that working parent who has to, get food on the table on a weeknight, but still iron their nurse's uniform, get their kids' homework done, bathe them, check their email, and then have dinner, but still want sophisticated meals. And so when I'm writing the show, I always, think about that. I think about what their daily struggles are. And, even if somebody has a different accent or a funny name that's hard for some of us to pronounce, like, basically our needs are very similar. And, we have a lot more that we have in common than separates us. And so for us, it's really important to humanize the issue of immigration. So if this season that I just finished filming, we go to Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is really an American colony, and we look at the idea of food sovereignty and what it means. But in other places, we also go, for instance, we went to Lowell, Massachusetts to visit Cambodians there, and the Cambodian American community in Lowell, Massachusetts has completely revitalized the city of Lowell, and so much that 1 out of 4 Lowellians are Cambodian or Cambodian American. And that episode seeks to refute the notion that refugees who come into certain communities are a drain on that system. They're actually not. And they provide, a labor force that the indigenous community there, or not so indigenous community, right, would not otherwise want to do. And so it allowed us to show that rather than me jumping on my soapbox and talking about it, in a speech for the ACLU or whatever. So it's been literally, I get very attached to these people, and I get to know them in a way that's really privileged. And it's moving for me, and I hope that it's moving for the audience too, and it allows us to be more curious about our neighbors and just be more empathetic also to the struggles that other people are going through. Because immigration is really what makes this country special. It is the thing that is so important to the evolution. I believe, yes,
Yeah.
you can clap for that. You can clap for immigration. I really believe that. I really believe that we are able to synthesize and take the best that every culture that comes and settles here has to offer and create this new thing, this uniquely polyglot, if you will, American culture. And so I don't think we should be afraid of it. I think we should embrace it. I think we should organize it better and have systems in place so that people aren't afraid of it. But that is really what the show seeks to do. It seeks to allow Americans to get to know each other a little bit better, a little bit easier.
I think in every episode you always seem to kind of, as a host, have that in your sights, that is what the show is about, Although I will say, watching the show, you really delight in being with the people you're interviewing, and you really delight in the food, and the food looks really delicious.
Yes,
the food looks incredible. It seems like you had some really special meals while you were making the show and getting to know the people you were interviewing.
It's been the joy of my life to do Taste the Nation. It really has. I'll tell you a little secret. I really don't go out to like 3 Michelin-star dinners very often, and I know I'm judging that kind of food all the time on Top Chef. But the truth is, if you gave me a choice between a 15-course tasting menu at one of the 50 world's best restaurants and to go to, the bodega out in Bronx that makes the best, empanada or something, I would go to the bodega 9 days out of 10. I would, because that is the kind of food that I grew up eating. And I don't have patience a lot of times. You know, I'm very lucky that I've met so many amazing chefs on the show who also come as guest judges on the show. You know, I've been able to rub shoulders with Danielle and Eric and Dominique Crenn and all those amazing people. But innately inside, I am still that 8-year-old child that wants to go with her mom to hunt for sugarcane in Spanish Harlem, or, you know, go down to Chinatown for those, you know, salted plums. That in my heart, I am a street food aficionado, you know.
And was your mom a cook? Did she cook?
My mom is a great cook. She's like the chutney queen of our family. She can make a chutney out of anything, and she's known in our family for, you know, being able to whip up a meal within half an hour or less by whatever she has in the fridge. It's because she often didn't have more than half an hour to whip up a meal. Yeah. So, you know, that's how she cooks, and she still cooks like that. And I think many people in real life do, you know. And so going into these communities and breaking bread with these people and getting to know their stories is a very personal experience for me. And you know, it's not a journalistic show. It's not. It's a very subjective editorial show. It is one person's view of the world, mine. I mean, I try to make it as balanced as I can, but I'm very front and center about what I'm doing, you know? And I think that's why all of these communities, we've been really lucky to have all the participants want to do the show and want to come on, because I would rather they tell their story than I tell their story. And I hope that that is what I allow them to do at the end of the day.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. What I want to talk about you, the home cook now, because anyone who follows Padma on Instagram, you know that Padma is a very passionate cook, and that when she's at home, she's cooking, right?
Yeah. So sometimes. Yeah.
Well, so you're just back from London, right? And you've been on the road for months and months and months.
Yeah.
So what are you having at home? Like, have you cooked anything yet, or what is the first thing? What is the first home cooked meal you're going to have?
So I came home, and I knew there wouldn't be any fresh curry leaves at home because we haven't been home for weeks and weeks and weeks, and my daughter's with her dad and stuff. So on the way home from the airport, I stopped off on Lexington and 28th Street, even before I arrived home, to get curry leaves and dry mango powder and some, you know, a couple other things that I knew I needed. And then I went home and I made dal and rice. Like I just dropped my bags, said hi to my dog, and I made dal and rice. That is what I made.
So does everyone know where Padma stopped at?
Yes.
Kalustians? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are other stores, like I'm sure the other stores are even cheaper for Indian food, like right around there. But,
it's magical.
It is a magical
place.
store.
Yes. So in addition to being an expert cook, you know, you are an accomplished author. Most recently of a children's book,
yes.
Tomatoes for Neela. So why a children's book?
You know, I love children's books. I've always loved children's books, even before I had a child. And there's just something magical. And I think all of us remember that book from our childhood that really, you know, takes us back there and was so seminal in our love of reading or just our, you know, our childhood. Like, we all have those books, and I certainly had those for me. And you know, the Tomatoes for Neela came out of a story that I would just tell my daughter Krishna at bedtime, and we would embellish it. And it was a way for me to tell her, you know, what grew when. So she came back from her father's place saying that she wanted pomegranates, and it was in July. And I said, no, you can't eat pomegranates in July. They only grow in September. And she didn't know. She was tiny, tiny, tiny then. And so I started telling her, you know, pomegranates are what you eat when we get our jackets out, when there are pumpkin patches, when it gets cold and the leaves change. And tomatoes are what we eat in the summer. And so, you know, I would take her to the Union Square Green Market with me, and I used to just strap her on, you know, in my little baby carrier. And it was, you know, the farmer's market is a wonderful place to take children, and they're very generous. You know, they'll give you a lot of samples, or little berries to taste or whatever. So that's really how the book came about. And it occurred to me that, we live in America where it's really a land of plenty. And so we don't know when things grow unless you live near an agricultural community or you have a garden, which, New York City, most people don't. And so why would my daughter know when things grew if I didn't teach her? And so it was just a way to teach her. And so we decided that the first book should be tomatoes, because tomatoes are something very easy for a child to identify, and at the very least they know about ketchup. So it was a way to teach her.
And then you just guest edited Best American Travel Writing, right?
Yes.
So that's inspired casting, because we all think of you for food, right? But actually you're traveling constantly for your work, and travel is as big a part of what you do as the
Definitely.
right?
I mean, I don't think I would have the career in food that I have if I wasn't able to travel in my younger life when I was, in college and in my 20s as a model. And I would go to these places for a job, and then I would just walk around to open air street markets or food markets, and that's sort of how I got to taste the world, literally. And so I was very excited when they asked me to do it, and but it was for 2020. And so I actually was like, well, who said no? Because nobody was traveling in 2020. And they said, no, we really want you. And I just was worried that there wouldn't be very much travel writing. I love travel writing. I love Paul Bowles. I love all of it. And I have to tell you, there was so much beautiful writing. And, something really strange and terrible happened to me during the pandemic, which was I lost the ability to read. I just could not concentrate on any type of reading, whether it was fiction or nonfiction. I could read a newspaper article, but that was it. And even that took a lot of focus, which I just didn't have. So I sort of took the job just to force myself to read again. And I read about 80 pieces, many of them very long form, New Yorker type pieces. And it was the thing that got me out of that rut. And also I was forced to write, a literary foreword. So that was good too. And it was a challenge for me. Sadly, that was the last year that they're going to do that anthology series.
Oh, no, really?
I didn't know that at the time, but they told me that after. So if you haven't gotten it, please go out and get it. There's a lot of great writers in there.
Well, what do you think makes a great food story? Whether that's television, something you read, like what makes a great food story?
I think what makes a great food story is what makes a great story, period. And I think that is a narrative arc. I think discovery. I think, it's important to describe the experience of eating something and smelling something and tasting something, because your reader cannot see or smell or taste that. And you also want to give a sense of place, and there has to be an emotional resonance to the experience, whatever it is, whether it harkens back to your childhood or it's something you've never had before. I think that's what makes a good piece of writing in general. And I love good food pieces. Being upstaged by this.
I know. All right, well, all right, waiting for this helicopter to pass. All right, well, let's do a lightning round really fast.
Okay.
All right, so who's your favorite person to eat with who is not in your family?
Okay, that's a tough one. Gail Simmons, because she's so descriptive and it's always fun to hear what she thinks.
Is she like that when you're just eating with her at a restaurant, just the two of you?
Sometimes, I mean, not all the time,
Yeah.
but I do remember she and I and her husband Jeremy were having brunch one time down in Alphabet City where I was living at the time, and it was a really good restaurant. We were both excited to go, and we both ordered the same thing. We both looked at each other. And when it's us at a restaurant, we don't usually send something back, because it's just very mean. And so we don't, but we both looked at each other and we were like, this egg is so undercooked. Like, it's just, the albumin isn't even like solid, and it's not even opaque, and it was a soft boiled egg. And we're like, how do we send this back so it cooks smart because we're starving? And she was like, we can't eat it. And we sent it back, and then it came back, and it was still a little, to me, it wasn't even soft. It was just still viscous, I shall call it.
Raw.
A little bit.
Okay,
And so, but like listening to Gail struggle to say it in the most diplomatic, polite way, because she is, if you know Gail, she's very polite and she's very sweet, and she's just, everybody loves Gail. You can't, she never rubs anyone the wrong way. But she's my favorite person to do that with.
Okay, and as we've established, you're a New Yorker, so what's your favorite place to eat in New York?
Oh my gosh.
I know, that one's hard.
That's tough.
I know.
Well, for South Indian food, I like Sema, which just got a Michelin star. It's the first Indian restaurant that has a Michelin star in New York. But I also like the Basement Canteen in Queens at the Ganesh Temple on Bound Street. That also is very good. So if you're in Flushing, go there. I also love La Mercerie downtown. I think it's a beautiful room. I think she's wonderful. It's French food that isn't pretentious, and you can also go there for breakfast because it's open really early. And I still love Indochine.
Oh, Indochine.
Yeah, I had my 40th birthday at Indochine. I love that restaurant because it's beautiful and the food is consistent, and you can eat things that are really yummy but still eat semi-healthily, And so those are some of my favorite restaurants.
All right, last question. What is your dream project? There are no budget problems, there are no logistics issues, no scheduling issues. It's just you and the thing you want to do.
I think I'm doing it. I think I'm doing it with Taste the Nation. I'm very, very lucky to be able to finally do the thing that I had in my head. Because, any kind of filmmaking, whether it's TV or films, and I've done all of it, is a very collaborative effort. And whoever's paying for that project to be made, in this case Hulu, will also have a lot to say about shaping it and how it turns out. And I'm very privileged in that the thing that was in my head is actually very, very close, almost identical to what you see on screen. And that, I've been in television a long time. I've been working for over 20 years. And it's a rare, rare thing for that to happen. And I'm very lucky, and I don't take it for granted, and I really appreciate it. It's the first time in my life that that's happened. And it's the first time where I've been able to also build a show from the ground up, just as I wanted it. Because I wanted to do a show that I wanted to watch, that I thought other people would also find compelling and want to watch. And so I am doing my dream job. I have, really no complaints.
Padma Lakshmi, an icon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.